So tell me, Neil, is the Earth flat?
We have video from space of the rotating spherical Earth. The Earth is round.
Thank you for joining us on this episode.
I don't like debating people because in a debate, what is the construct? It's typically two people and there's an audience and you debate some opposite sides of some issue and then there's a winner of the debate. And then everyone walks away reflecting on the winner. So who wins a debate? It's often the person who's charismatic, who's maybe charming, that's related to charisma, of course, who has a good way with words, good vocabulary. And you can have someone who doesn't have any of that, who is speaking objective truths, who could lose a debate. So then what is the point of the debate if one of these points of view is objectively true? So I will not enter a debate where I have the objectively true side of an argument and the other person does not. That is something that should not be debated, does not belong in front of an audience getting debated. You want to debate something? Debate political policy of what to do in the face of climate change. Do you have carbon tax? Do you solar panels? Do you subsidize them? Debate that. Don't debate something that is or is not objectively true in this world. The B.o.B, the rapper, I have a video letter to him, the transcript of which is in Letters from an Astrophysicist. That rose to that level of attention because he started saying, I am using laws of math and physics to show Earth is flat. Those are fighting words. You're going to say using math and physics? That is an alarm to the geekiverse that we must rise up and counteract these forces from the dark side that are out there. So the bat signal went up. I responded. What is the bat signal? Oh, sorry. In my Twitter stream, there were people saying, Neil, you got to do something about B.o.B. Save him from himself. He's saying Earth is flat. Then I first said, who's B.o.B? So I quickly looked at him. Oh, it's a rap star. Okay. These are people who follow me and B.o.B. in the Twitterverse. So what does that Venn diagram look like? How much overlap is there in the two Venn diagrams? In this slice, however narrow, they were pleading to me to do something. And so I responded with a video letter, just kind of putting him in his place.
Rapper B.o.B, perhaps you know him for hits like Airplanes and Nothing on You. He firmly believes that the Earth is flat. He is on a Twitter mission to prove it, and he says he has photographic evidence and that we've been fooled all this time.
All right, listen, B.o.B, once and for all. The Earth looks flat because, one, you're not far enough away at your size. Two, your size isn't large enough relative to Earth to notice any curvature at all. It's a fundamental fact of calculus and non-Euclidean geometry. Small sections of large curved surfaces will always look flat to little creatures that crawl upon it. But this whole thing, it's just a symptom of a larger problem. There's a growing anti-intellectual strain in this country. It may be the beginning of the end of our informed democracy. Of course, in a free society, you can and should think whatever you want. And if you want to think the world is flat, go right ahead. But if you think the world is flat and you have influence over others, as would successful rappers or even presidential candidates, then being wrong becomes being harmful to the health, the wealth, and the security of our citizenry. Discovery and exploration got us out of the caves, and each generation benefits from what previous generations have learned. Isaac Newton, my man, said, if I have seen farther than others, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. I get an amen. Woo. So that's right, B.o.B. When you stand on the shoulders of those who came before, you might just see far enough to realize the Earth isn't flat. And by the way, this is called gravity. And so I responded with a video letter, just kind of putting him in his place. I think it's important to combat people who are claiming that they are using math, science, evidence, and physics behind their cause when in fact they either aren't or they're using it badly. That needs to be called out. Otherwise, if you just have a belief system, I don't really care. We live in a country that protects free speech, which usually also means free thought. You want to think Earth is flat? Go right ahead. But if you start influencing other people who have power over other people, and you have no foundation in objective reality, it can be dangerous. If you influence people or you yourself become someone who has influence over legislation, laws, rules by which we all abide in society, that's an unhealthy situation for civilization to be in. If your personal belief system, which does not have correspondence in objective reality, starts becoming predominant in the thoughts and hearts and minds of civilization. By the way, I didn't know you used to break dance. Is that right?
Yeah. I come from the culture, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of angular momentum in breakdancing.
Talk about that.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, ever see ice skaters where they bring in their arms and they rotate faster?
Mm-hmm.
The breakdancers, they'll start kind of extended on their ass, rotating, and as they bring themselves in, they spin up. And the closer they get to their rotational axis, the faster they will spin, and then they just spread out again, and you slow down, and you can hit the marks. So yeah, it's a lot of physics in that.
A lot of physics.
Yeah.
So, but what is the parallel between that and how oblate sphere is a spheroid?
Spheroid. Yeah.
Spheroid. What's the correlation in that?
Yeah. Oh, you remember that? You remember that?
I'm telling you.
Okay. If you are not solid yet, if you are forming like the early Earth and you're rotating, what's going to happen is you're going to flatten out and you're going to be a little wider in the midsection, like spinning pizza dough.
Yeah.
You know, it just gets flatter, right? So Earth got a little bit wider at its equator than it did pole to pole before it sort of froze into place. I say freeze, but we're talking about rocks going from molten to solid, all right? And so in the mind of the rocks, it's freezing, but to us, we wouldn't normally use that word. So the Earth is just a little wider at its equator. That's all. You call it an oblate spheroid. That's all. It's too many syllables just to say that we're round and a little chubby in the midsection. That's all.
And that's been the argument on why the Earth. Part of the argument of why the Earth isn't flat.
No, it's not even no.
Shut down.
Someone could say it's an argument. That don't make it an argument.
Okay, I was going to ask you.
It's a few miles wider at the equator than at the poles. If you shrunk Earth down to the size of a cue ball, it would be one of the smoothest, roundest cue balls ever made. That's how round Earth is. The fact that I can tell you that it's slightly wider at the equator is because we have very accurate tools to make that measurement. But think about it. From the depths of the Marianas Trench off the coast of the Philippines, which is the deepest part of Earth's crust, up to the top of Mount Everest, it's like 12 miles.
Yeah.
You could drive that in 10 minutes. You know, basically doing the speed limit. So the structure on Earth's surface relative to the size of the Earth's surface is very mild. We think it's large because we're tiny compared to that. So yeah, if you're an ant, of course, climbing up to a stack of sheet of papers is a big effort for you.
Yeah.
If you're an ant, well, we're ants on the surface of this terrain that we call Earth. But if you take a step back and look at the Earth, that sucker is round as you're going to get.
All right, we brought your nephew here, Tyson. He's going to talk in a minute, but I got you here, so I feel like I'm on Star Talk.
Why'd you ask him if he had a rap name? You didn't ask me if I had a
Oh.
Neil, you have a rap name?
MC Squared.
You gotta go. Yo. I can't believe you didn't see that coming.
You didn't see that coming.
I'm whack. I should have saw that coming.
Wow. Damn.
Okay.
I'll shut up now. That was good. I'm just, because this whole flat Earth thing broke out, and I just put out a few tweets just to sort of to joust, right? And I made it clear that he could still be a great rapper, B.o.B, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm not going to, nobody's going to take that away from him just because he was using 4 centuries old reasoning about the shape of the earth. So one of my tweets was, just because you're using 4 centuries old reasoning doesn't mean we still don't like your music. We love you. We can still listen.
I felt like you was firing shots at him when you did that.
Right.
You threw a bar at him with that.
MC squared.
But then out came, he did a diss track. And I said, I don't know if I know what a diss track is. So I called up my nephew. I said, what's a diss track? He said, oh, yeah, he's dissing you. I said, well, could you diss back? Is that allowed? I called his man up at 7 in the morning. By 11 o'clock, he had like a double, what do you call it? If diss back, get the diss? You got a word for that?
A retaliation?
Retaliation.
Okay.
So within 4 hours, my boy had a retaliation track. So I went back on Twitter and I said, although I'm an astrophysicist, I know some rappers.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And one of them has got my back. And then I posted it and then I pulled out and I haven't said anything about it to anybody until just now.
Just now.
Yeah.
Hey, so you heard the talk about the world being flat. What is your question?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely a topic I've been following up a bit, and I saw I did see you guys going back and forth with B.o.B and everything. It was interesting, but I just feel like as I look at the information on this, it seems like it's a little bit more of an open-ended, something that's still questionable. Even looking at everybody, even when Copernicus wrote it in the first place, he used as and if, and according to Einstein, both theories have to be equal. So I'm just curious why you didn't use this opportunity to kind of open up the conversation. And if, and believing in the geocentric model, saying that, really laying out the facts rather than just kind of getting into a rap battle about it.
Yeah, so a couple of things. First, the 140 characters is not the place to be loquacious. So I have to be I've got to really parse the words. And I didn't feel like opening up into a full up debate. You'd never see me debate anybody on any subject ever. There's no YouTube video of me debating anybody. It's not what I do. I want to educate people, and then you go out and think what you want. But if you're missing information in how you think, it's the job of the educator to make sure you come out of the box knowing how to think and how to process information. So in your question, you're mixing two different things. Copernicus put the sun back in the middle of the known universe where previously the Earth was there. And so, but with Copernicus, no one had an issue about whether Earth was round. All right, so this conversation is about whether Earth was round, not whether Earth is in the middle of the known universe. So and that would be the geocentric as opposed to the heliocentric. Oh, by the way, there was this is a tangent. There was an element discovered on the sun before it was discovered on Earth, and they named it after the Greek god Helios, helium. So the element helium, named after the sun, heliocentric, helium. Helium was discovered on the sun before we even found it here. That's just a little bit.
No, that's
I got to toss that out.
Changes
there.
your voice too. Shut up, throw that.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah,
You're stupid.
if you inhale it, if you look at party balloons and say, "Gee, I want to inhale that gas," and you're one of those people, yeah, you'll sound like Mickey Mouse when you're done. At what point do you stop arguing things that have been settled for 4 centuries? And how do you invest your time and energy in doing so? So that's really what this is about. If this was 1491 and people are still wondering whether Earth is round and you send Columbus off and will he come back and will he float off the edge, we can have this conversation in the town hall. Yeah. But we've been to the moon. And to have this conversation in the era of space exploration and satellites and all the rest of that, I'm thinking we should try to find something else. That's
the water in Flint. Let's talk about that. Can you solve that problem? Neil, can you solve that problem?
Come on now. So that's where I'm coming from here.
Chad, you have any other questions?
Well, yeah, we can get back. But I would like, I do think that's something that's worth that you might be worth doing some more investigation, because I don't think it's something that's been a closed topic at all. And if you look at that, it actually has been consistently, refuted for a while. I just think I would like to see someone that is on the other side of the fence actually do the science rather than just, dismiss something. It would be interesting to see, someone yourself or someone like that actually put some time and put out.
Well, okay, so I did, in a 140 character way, I did that with one of B.o.B's tweets. He tweeted that from the summit of Bear Mountain, which is 1,200 feet up in upstate New York, 60 miles from New York City, he says, from that location, he's saying this, I calculated using math that Manhattan should be hidden, should be concealed behind 170 feet of Earth's curved surface. But here's this photo, and there's Manhattan. So therefore, Earth is flat. So first I had to correct his calculation. It's actually 150 feet of Earth's curved surface, not 170. Not a problem. So then I said, let us block 150 feet of view of Manhattan. How tall is a 150-foot building? It's 15 stories.
Okay.
So you're looking at this picture of Manhattan. There is every building taller than 15 stories, which is every building in Midtown and every building in downtown. And those are the only buildings you see in that photo. All right. Is anybody thinking that way about this picture? No. So I put that out there. Okay. But I didn't want it to,
let's clear this up. This is not a beef between you and B.o.B. I think B.o.B. going out saying that honestly is bringing more attention to science as a whole.
So here's and I'll shut up after this.
Yeah, okay.
So I didn't need to go there except in the Venn diagram of his Twitter followers, which is many, more than 2 million, and my Twitter followers, there's some overlap apparently. And so in that overlap, when he started posting these tweets, they were coming to me and say, Neil, I love B.o.B, but you got to do something. Come on. It was almost like protect him from himself kind of thing. Oh. And so they were calling me out. And still that's not enough until I looked at the tweets and he's saying, I'm using physics and I'm using math. You're going to say you're using physics and not get the right answer? I got to jump in. So that's when I jumped in. That's
all right. But in all fairness, I appreciate him bringing this to the attention because these are like, what Chance was saying, it's fun to have this conversation. Yeah. And you've made science hip and fun for a lot of folks who otherwise, I sit up and watch Star Talk all the time.
And I'm amazed that there's at least a half a dozen rap tracks out there now talking about Earth and its shape and arguing back and forth. So,
here's what B.o.B. put out, Flatline.
You fooled us for the last time.
Yeah, Neil. Yeah, Neil.
Damn.
Okay, so that was the Flatline. That was B.o.B. And it got triggered from a online conversation that was taking place about whether or not the Earth is flat or round.
Since you came with my uncle and you're going to be spitting all this stuff, I might as well respond on his behalf.
See what it sounds like, man. All right, here it is.
When people in charge. From my debut, and now it's back to that.
Oh!
I wrote something about this just a few weeks ago on an article titled What Science Is and How and Why It Works. Mm-hmm. And I highlighted two different kinds of things. So there's something called objective truth. These are things that are true whether or not you believe in them, and they're true no matter what else you're thinking. And these are, is the Earth round? The Earth goes around the sun is hot, this sort of thing. And there are other kinds of things. There's your personal truths. Mm-hmm. Your personal truth is Jesus your Savior. Is Muhammad the last prophet on earth? Right. And people can have their personal truths. And the difference between these, of course, is that you generally, to convince someone else of your personal truth requires major coercion, and in the limit, it requires war. Mm-hmm. And the history of civilization has borne that out. In a pluralistic society like the United States, where we cherish diversity of beliefs, then to come at someone for their personal truths is not the kind of country if you required everybody have the same personal truth, that's not a free democracy. Right. We got words for what those countries are. So, but what you need to do at the end of the day is make sure you know the difference between your personal truth and an objective truth. And if you're going to pass laws that affect everybody, you want to base those on the objective truths, and you keep your personal truths to your family and your community, or whatever else that is.
I'm sure you've heard Kyrie Irving on occasion has espoused what we would call a flat Earth theory. What do you say to Kyrie and other flat earthers as they're
No,
called?
I say that's why he's a basketball player.
Wow.
In a free country, you can think the Earth is flat.
Yes.
There are plenty of jobs for you.
Yes.
If you think Earth is flat.
Okay.
Just stay away from NASA and any other place where objective reality matters. And so he plays basketball. I'm cool with that.
I think Neil deGrasse Tyson just told Kyrie to stick to sports. I think he just stick to sports, Kyrie.
Well, just don't stick to
Yeah, I
astrophysics.
sort of said that. I said, whatever you do, just stay away from NASA.
Okay,
That's all, because that would be a disaster. and by the way, we live in a free country. We shouldn't legislate what people say.
No, of course.
But we should keep track of where people who are not connected to objective reality, we should track where they have power.
Yes.
And where they exercise their power. And if they have power over people who are trying to learn an objective reality, then that's a recipe for disaster. That's a recipe for the unraveling of civilization itself.
Wow, that is big.
Kyrie Irving. I don't know. Did you see?
No,
You saw this, right?
don't get me started.
I gotta know.
Okay, well, I'll let you finish your question. Go.
Kyrie Irving says that he, even though has been told the world is round, believes it to be flat. What is your thought process on this?
So, okay, let me be blunt, okay? We live in a free country. So you ought to be able to think and say whatever you want. If he wants to think Earth is flat, go right ahead. As long as he continues to play basketball and not become head of any space agency.
That's a great point.
So my point is, if you have certain limitations of understanding of the natural world, stay away from jobs that require that. Okay, the understanding. That's all. That's all I'm saying. And we'll try to convince them along the way, because I think it's better when we have an educated electorate rather than a scientifically illiterate electorate. Just better all around. But it's a free country, and I will. And he can, we can say and think it. And plus, he's college educated, right? Last I checked,
He is, yeah.
right. So yeah, as long as he stays a basketball player and stays away from NASA, we're fine. Or what we do is take everybody who thinks Earth is flat and launch them into space.
There you go.
And then wonder whether we got budget to bring them back, right? Send them around Earth a few times, and then only when the last of them agrees do we then agree to bring them back.
And by the way, Kyrie Irving, he's paid to play basketball. And as far as he's concerned, the court is flat. You can think Earth is flat, and there are many jobs you can still have in society.
Right.
One of them is in the NBA. I'm not going to chase him down. I'd love to have a conversation with him, but I'm not going to publicly denounce him. I will if the government says we need Kyrie Irving to run NASA. Then I got to stand up. But as long as he's a great basketball player, I miss him here on the Brooklyn, in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But, a lot of jobs for you if you think Earth is flat.
How do you sum up to someone who says that the Earth is actually round? How can you quickly prove that?
We have pictures.
Okay. Well, but then they'll say those pictures.
Here. Okay.
Me and Amon Shumper went back and forth. I don't believe those pictures.
Okay. All right. I might ask, what would convince you that Earth was a sphere? What would convince you? If nothing, then it's time to end the conversation. Or I will also say, here's a good one. You ready? Okay. And this has happened to us all. We're here now in the East Coast, Eastern time zone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Especially in the winter, you're watching Sunday football. The sun sets in New York at 4:30 in the afternoon in midwinter, right in the heart of the football season. Okay. A football game in LA at that same time, it's daytime. The sun is up.
Yeah.
Okay. It's 3 hours. It's 1 o'clock it's 1:30 in the afternoon. The sun is high in the sky. And that's happening now. The game is live.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it that the sun is set for us and then you go west and the sun is not yet set for them? Can you explain that? And I've yet to hear any of them explain this. And that's a good sports reference. And that will work no matter where you are if you are east of a sporting event that happens to your west. So that seems to me to be pretty convincing. That will happen if the surface is curved and the sun is setting below it.
Or you could just get into a plane and keep flying one direction and see if you fall off the edge. I mean, there's that.
Yeah, they'd have to charter a plane for that. So,
Right.
So I'd like the fact that people want to be skeptical,
Right.
but you don't want to be so open-minded that your brains spill out and lose the capacity to analyze what is authentic data, authentic evidence from whatever rabbit warren you fell into on YouTube to end up believing what you think is true out there, in spite of what established experimental evidence tells you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what I don't do,
what do you not
it may
do?
feel this way, and I've done it once, maybe twice, but what I don't do is debunk crazy ideas. I spend my whole life doing that. I'm an educator. My task is not to debunk the crazy ideas of adults, but establish an educational system that is incapable of producing an adult that thinks that way in the first place.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, you've been at it for a long time. Over the last 10 years or so, have you seen an increase in the number of people who maybe think these things?
I think that number of people may be the same over time. They just now can write a blog that the whole world has access to via a search engine, right? You be alone with your own view that has no correspondence to objective reality, and you type it into a Google search, and it'll find every other person like you who thinks the same way, giving you the false sense that you're actually onto something, that you have some deep insight into the world that no one else has. This is delusional. The internet landed in our laps without creating a curriculum that empowers you to know when someone online is full of shit. We have extra ways to divide ourselves now because the internet makes it easy. If you have some idea that's a little bit crazy, but you don't think it's crazy, you type it in, and up comes everybody else who shares that exact idea. And so the tribalization now can cut through the population in other ways that have not been traditional. Mm-hmm. That's why you have the rise of flat earthers, right? They've all found each other. There used to be a lone person at the party that say now they all have banded together. And so I don't think this is good as a general fact, because it's appealing to some base sort of caveman tribal element that we know is still in us. And one of the points of civilization is to tamp down what might be primal urges, and so that we all get along because we all share the same planet.
I'm just fascinated by this idea that people can now have more data than they've ever had, and yet they use that data to come up with things like anti-vaxxing, climate change denial, flat earthing. They come up with these and they attempt to use data to back those opinions up. And how, I guess, depressing is it for someone like you to see the growth? Or maybe it isn't the growth. Maybe it's the same amount of people. It's just that they now can amplify their opinions on social media.
Yeah, it's all of the above. So, as you know, social media and the internet in general has tribalized the world. You might have had some odd idea that no one would listen to, and then you type that idea into a Google search, and you find everyone else with exactly that same odd idea. And that gives you some kind of false confidence that that idea is correct or accurate or should be promoted. So there isn't a filter out there to say, by the way, this idea you're looking up is completely crazy and is not supported by the observational consensus of scientific research. So that's not, that filter isn't there. So yeah, we are susceptible to people cherry picking data, cherry picking facts. Yes, the Earth looks flat from our size, 5-6 feet tall, standing on something that's 8,000 miles in diameter, 25,000 miles in circumference. Yeah, it looks flat to you. Is there another way to test this hypothesis? Yeah,
let's go into freaking space and take a picture, okay? We did that, right? By the way, we had evidence before we went into space that Earth was round. So if you're selectively invoking data, you're not really understanding how discovery works, how science works, how do you turn data into knowledge, data into information into knowledge, and knowledge into wisdom. That arc is something that is lacking in modern society today.
Stick to that and you'll be okay.
I think so. Could a solar eclipse happen on a flat Earth? You have to ask first, is Earth the only flat thing in this model? Or is the moon also flat? Okay? Because if everything is flat, then you have a flat moon coming in front of the sun, and some of those times you'd see like a solar eclipse with an edge on shadow. Okay? It would be it'd be the sun and there'd be the edge thing coming. We'd never seen that. We've only ever seen a curved edge come in front of the sun. And the only shape that has a curved edge, no matter its orientation, is a sphere. So, I don't know what to tell you. The world would look really different if everything were flat. Earth part 2. So, if Earth is the only flat thing, and the moon is round, spherical, and the sun is spherical, and all this is going on, and everywhere else in the universe except Earth is flat, yeah, you can have ordinary total solar eclipses. Because those happen no matter the shape of the Earth. What's odd is there are people who think Earth is flat,
right?
But recognize that the moon is round, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and the sun are all spheres, but Earth is flat. That's not, something doesn't square.
Something doesn't jive, right?
Okay. Plus, in my latest book, ooh, did I just plug my book?
Wait, your latest book is called Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. What? We just happen to have a copy right here.
No, it just happens to be. I swear we didn't plant the book. I have an entire chapter titled On Being Round.
Oh.
And it's an exploration of how all the laws of physics and the accounting of energy as processes unfold in the universe, how that conspire to make things round.
So it favors the sphere.
Favors a sphere, yes.
Right.
And if something is not a sphere, it's a little bit flattened, you can ask what flattened it, and you find out, oh, it's rotating real fast.
Right.
So then it gets a little flattened because of that.
Right.
And so almost everything in the universe is either spheres or slight distortions of a sphere for some other thing that's happening to it. I mean, we can just see how the universe favors spheres.
So it's nature.
Right.
Basically,
nature.
the universe.
In all fairness to the people who want a flat Earth.
Yes, let's be fair to those people.
Okay. In Columbus's day, there was surely a flat Earth contingent. Okay?
Yes.
Columbus predates the era of experimental checking of any idea you might have.
Not a lot of peer-reviewed studies back in the day.
Back in the day. Back in the day.
Kind of just like...
You just say whatever you felt.
You know what? I believe that elephant poop will cure cancer.
There you go.
That's right. Wrote a paper about it. Like to read it? Here it is. And you're good, right?
Right. So it wasn't until Francis Bacon, Galileo, in the 1600s, where the idea that if you're going to say something and you think what you're saying is true, then no matter how obvious you think it is that it's true, you should still test it.
Gotcha.
There could be something fooling you in one way or another. So if you want to say Earth is flat, then, for example, lunar eclipses. What's a lunar eclipse? If your face is the brilliant sun.
Thank you.
And this is Earth, and the moon is over here, the sun is always casting Earth's shadow into space. It's always there no matter what.
Right.
Obviously, okay? It's just a shadow.
It's a shadow.
The moon
it's
occasionally...
just a shadow shining on blackness.
Yeah, a shadow in darkness.
A shadow in darkness.
So the moon occasionally passes through that shadow. And if you see the shape of Earth's shadow on the moon, it is always round. Always round. If Earth were flat, sometimes you get like a flat shadow.
Right.
We've never seen a flat shadow.
Right.
In fact, it is a segment of a arc
of a circle no matter the orientation of the moon and the sun. And the only thing that makes a perfectly circular shadow
would be something that's perfectly circular.
Perfectly spherical.
Spherical. Right.
Yes. So the only thing that makes a perfect circle shadow every single time is a perfect sphere.
Right.
Okay? No matter what angle you shine. Whereas a disk, it would only make a perfect circle if you lined it that way.
Right.
And
so
then
you have to look at the face of the disc in order to get the circle.
The circle. If
any
other angle, you get other shapes.
something of another
The
shape.
Greeks knew this.
Right.
All the lunar eclipses they said, oh my gosh, we must be in a round Earth. This is thousands of years,
Before
2,000 years
Columbus.
before Columbus. Exactly.
Right.
So now if the Earth is round, how big is Earth?
Mm-hmm.
You might want to check for that. There was a famous experiment conducted by Eratosthenes. Eratosthenes. And the two cities in the old world, and one of them, they knew that at 12 noon on a particular day of the year, that the sun was directly overhead and you could see the bottom of a well.
Oh, okay.
You don't run around looking at the bottoms of wells.
No.
Because the light doesn't get down there. Doesn't get down there.
How can we use this observation to see if Earth's surface is curved? We needed another well. Turns out we can't see the bottom of both wells at the same time. What might explain this? Well, there are two possible explanations. First, we could have a flat Earth with the sun that's small and close by, so that the light hits the second well at an angle. Or second, we could have a curved Earth with a sun that's big and far away, so that all the light comes in parallel, but only one well at a time is lit all the way to the bottom. Turns out with just two wells, there's enough wiggle room for both explanations to fit our observations. Eratosthenes only had two wells, but what if he had added a third? With a third well, it doesn't matter where the sun is. No flat Earth model can explain the angles of all three shadows. But the spherical model explains it all three angles, with ease.
And to do this experiment, you got to measure the angles. Greeks had the angles.
Yeah.
Okay, in fact, geometry translates to Earth measurement. So one last thing, which should be obvious, if you pay attention and think about it. If you send a ship straight to the horizon, eventually it begins to disappear until it's no longer visible beyond your horizon.
Right.
And you should ask yourself, what kind of surface would produce that result?
The ocean.
If it's
the ocean has a ramp. It's like a parking lot. The ocean has a ramp.
And it's an elevator.
It's an elevator. You get to a certain point, and they just like going down.
Seafarers knew this.
Right.
And so, however flat they would have imagined the Earth to be, they couldn't have accepted it to be completely flat, because otherwise you would never not see the ship. Okay. Also, if I just tell you, Chuck, walk due east, okay?
Right.
And don't ever stop.
Right.
I just turn around my chair and face this way, and eventually you're going to come back.
Right. And you'll probably be about 150 years old, because I am no Forrest Gump. That is how long it would take me to run the Earth.
For me, the fact that there's a rise of flat earthers is evidence of two things.
Okay.
One, we live in a country that protects free speech.
That's actually kind of awesome.
And two, we live in a country with a failed educational system.
Ooh, that one hurt.
Our system needs to train you not only what to know, but how to think about information and knowledge and evidence. If we don't have that kind of training, you'd run around believe anything.
Anything.
Flat earthers always say, hey, how come the planes when they're flying don't have to adjust to the curve of the Earth when they're flying straight?
Yeah.
Why do they not have to adjust to the curve? I mean, I think I know the answer, but I would like to hear your answer.
Because it's flat, that's why.
Yeah, why don't they have to
If
adjust?
Earth were much, much smaller, they would have to continue to adjust to the curvature of the Earth. But Earth is huge compared to an airplane. So the adjustment they make for the curvature is very small, and it happens continually.
We just don't notice because
the Earth is very large.
Oh.
That's what stumps flat earthers. The Earth is so much larger compared to us, it feels like it's flat. And I empathize with that sentiment. But that's why we have the methods and tools of science, to transcend the access that our five senses have to objective reality. Because your senses suck. That's why you can have books that have optical illusions. Oh, is the line in the page? Out? Is it longer? I don't know. Simple line drawings will stump your brain.
blue dress or gold dress.
Right. And now we're going to say, let's use our senses to decide what is objectively real in the world. No, leave them at the door. Invoke scientific methods and tools. That's why science was invented. That's why civilization took off with the invention of the methods and tools of science. Religion, in many ways, gives you answers right now.
Yeah.
Without the need to sort of to research it or to go on the frontier.
The lack of education and the lack of curiosity about it is one of the scariest things about new generations of kids, right? Like when the new generations are coming up, if they know less than the generation before, that's when we really start to freak out.
That would be a problem. Although I have good confidence in the 30 and under generation.
Is that millennial? How old do you have to be?
I think millennials have only ever known the internet and devices. So what would that be?
Recent.
No, my son is a millennial, and he's like, my kids are millennials, so they're 20-ish. So 30 is a little old. So 25 and under, I think, are the millennials.
Yeah, but 30, when they were 10, the internet was around.
I know, but they need a different marketing term, so you can market to them differently.
Yeah.
So to me, I would put them in the same bin just as you were thinking there. But they have a different relationship to science and technology.
Of course.
They don't fear the science or the technology. They embrace it because it has shaped the civilization that has enabled their social life.
It has, but through this, like one of the things that I tweeted, I think it was from Scientific American yesterday, maybe it was yesterday, that it's a little bit misleading, but one of the things they said is only 64% of millennials have a strong belief. These coasters are terrible. They look great, but then things stick to the bottom.
The hell is
of
it
them.
made of?
I don't know, metal.
Yeah, okay. A metal coaster?
Yeah, see?
What the hell is that?
Sticks. Yeah, that's the issue. It sticks when it gets moisture.
You know about this where you flip this over and you tip it over and then it...
What happens?
You ever done that? You never did that?
What?
Yeah,
Stays?
it'll stay, yeah.
Oh, because of the pressure?
Yeah, the air pressure on it, yeah.
Okay.
But...
Don't do it. I don't trust your science.
Okay.
Your objective truth.
64% of what?
Of millennials are not, or only 64% are convinced that the world is a ball. The world is a circle. That the world is a, what is it, a spheroid? Is that what it's called? Oblate?
I mean, I'd like to see how that question
spheroid?
was asked.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because if they know that we are oblate, and the thing is asking, is Earth a ball? They'll say, no, we're an oblate ball. And we're slightly wider below the equator than at the equator, so we're a pear-shaped oblate spheroid.
But it's not a pear that you would find normally. If you found that pear, you'd be like, this fucking pear that's shaped like a ball.
So these differences in measurements are so small that if you found it on the ground, you would say this is a perfect sphere.
Right.
Let me tell you how good a sphere it is.
Right.
All right. You ever see the schoolroom globes, the geographic globes? And you rub your finger over Nepal, and you get the Himalayas. Yeah, and you get the Rockies. And you say, oh, that is a gross exaggeration of reality.
Yes.
Do you realize if you took Earth with all of its mountains, valleys, and hills, and shrunk it down to the size of a cue ball, it would be smoother than any cue ball ever machined.
Really?
Yes. Yes. Think about it.
What?
Think about this. Joe.
Really?
Joe.
Everest?
Joe, chill. Listen to me.
Damn.
You ready? Okay. Do you know the deepest part of Earth's crust?
No.
The Marianas Trench, off the coast of the Philippines, in the Pacific Ocean.
That's the deepest part.
Deepest part. It goes 6 miles down. Okay.
Oh, okay. So, okay. I was
without digging.
I was thinking of the depth of the crust itself.
No. Just access to the deepest part of Earth's crust, the lowest point on Earth's surface, the Marianas Trench, right off the coast of the Philippines. The highest point on Earth's surface, the tip of K1.
K2? Is it K1 or K2? Which one? Is it Japan?
I think it's K1. Why would you name the tallest peak K2?
That's a good point.
I'm just... Right. I'm not a mountain climber, but I'm just thinking.
Where is K1?
K1, it's the Himalayan mountains.
Okay.
In Nepal. Okay? Isn't it in Nepal? I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now, let's say, how high up is that? Well, it's 28,000 feet. So it's like 5 miles up. Okay?
Right.
The distance between the lowest point on Earth's surface and the highest point on Earth's surface is 11 miles.
That's here to the Comedy Store.
That is less than the length of Manhattan.
Whoa.
Yet we are 8,000 miles in diameter. And those 2 points are very far separated from one another. If you were a cosmic giant and you came up to Earth and you rubbed your finger over Earth's surface, it would feel as smooth as a cue ball to you.
Wow.
In fact, in this book, I have a whole chapter called On Being Round, which is all about this. It's all about our perception of what is round and what is not.
I had asked you to debate one of them flat Earth guys.
No, I don't. I can't. No.
I know. We talked about it, and we were going to have him on Skype.
No, what we do is, and I think this is a diabolical plot, so that the next time we can ship people en masse into orbit, they all want to be the first in line because they know we're going to send them, so that they can see the round Earth. They're going to be the first ones in space, just so they can stop annoying the rest of us.
I don't think you're correct.
I don't
think you're correct. But
you don't think it's a diabolical plot?
I do have people that I've met that don't believe, because the problem with YouTube videos is, it's a problem with a lot of things, but one of the things about being unchecked while you're discussing things is you can say things, you can use big words, you can sound articulate and smooth, and you can do it in a very professional looking manner.
Or do it passionately.
Yes, passionately, convincingly, charismatically, and you're unchecked. But if you did that in front of an expert and you showed him that, along the way they go, stop, that's not true. Stop, that's not how it works.
Right.
Let me show you why this is incorrect. Let me show you how you could prove that this is incorrect.
Let me show you objective truths.
But this is not happening.
That render your argument invalid.
Right. So people who don't have any education, and then they watch one of these YouTube clips, they start actually believing that this stuff makes sense because it's unchecked.
And I would say it's not about whether they've had education, it's about whether the education they had teaches them skepticism of information. And teaches them how to inquire. Do you realize it's just as intellectually lazy to believe everything you see as it is to deny everything you see?
Yes.
Why should someone know automatically that Earth isn't flat, yet I tell them in the next breath that the entire universe was once as small as a marble? Right? Both of those sound equally preposterous. Except one has evidence to back it and the other does not. And very strong scientific, theoretical, and experimental underpinnings. So when you are trained to inquire, you don't either believe everything outright or reject everything outright. You're trained to ask questions. You're trained to probe deeper than the layer of information that comes to you. That's what should be taught in school. And it's not. They give you a book and say, learn this.
Yeah.
And you'll get tested on it. And then when you're done, learn this.
Well, isn't also there's a problem with being inexorably connected to your first belief. When you have an idea and it's in your head, it's very difficult for people to shake that idea, and they start arguing that idea becomes a part of their identity.
And they dig their heels in deeper when an opposing view is presented to them.
Because they connect themselves to these ideas.
Right.
It is who they are.
Right. And so I try not to base my character profile on something that is not yet verified as objective truth.
That's a very good thing to do.
There are a group of people that absolutely and honestly believe in 2016 the Earth is flat. The Earth is flat. Now, I'm looking right out there at Neil deGrasse Tyson. Is he still out there? Yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson is out in our lobby right now. And I'm thinking, how, in this day and age, when there are so many brilliant people, do people honestly believe the world is flat? Neil, if you could just take a seat for a second. I need an answer to this. I saw something over the weekend.
Just seat this. You got the microphone, the seat. Yeah, it's all ready for somebody to come in.
Just in case. Just in case. We never know.
All right. Well,
I was watching some videos over the weekend that were preposterous.
Yeah.
There are so many conspiracy theories and whatnot around that you can't even keep track of them. This one blew my mind. The Earth is flat. Have you heard the flat earther people that believe the Earth is flat?
This is a deep failure of our educational system.
Thank you.
I've stopped chasing after people with those belief systems because I don't see the point. There's something deeper going on in our society that somehow enables people to believe they're making cogent arguments when they're not.
And they're not.
And so, you know why? I think it is. The way we teach science is you're just some empty vessel and we pour the science into you and then you regurgitate it on an exam.
Right.
Whereas science is a way of thinking. It's a way of understanding and probing the operations of nature.
You get enough pieces to then add your own curiosity and innovativeness, and that's how you proceed.
That's how you proceed. But you need to know what. So I to the point where I wrote an op-ed a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, titled "What Science Is and How and Why It Works." It's on my Facebook page. If you want, just put that title in Google, you'll find it. And I tried to show people that science is a way of understanding.
Right.
And you can't just pull stuff out of your ass and claim that it's science.
That it's science.
Because you throw some science words behind it.
Well, Neil, let me briefly explain what this is all about. They think the Earth is flat. Now, it looks like you ever see a flat globed map from the North Pole? It's
Flattens out, yeah.
They use that as their flat template. Around the edge is Antarctica, which is an ice rim that resides along so you can't fall off. Okay. You have to go over what would be Antarctica. Mm-hmm. Now, the rest of it is in the middle. Now, I'm watching this going, well, wouldn't the equator, which is supposed to be the furthest distance you could travel on the planet, wouldn't that be shorter than the distance if you went around Antarctica?
You are thinking rationally about this.
Well, apparently I am. But they didn't have an answer for that.
So even this very morning, I tweeted because today is the first full day of Ramadan, which is a holy day in the Muslim calendar. And in Ramadan, you fast during the day and you get to eat at night. Okay, so it's 40 days of fasting. I think 40.
Wow.
Okay,
that's a long time.
Maybe it's not. Whatever the number of days, you're fasting during the day when the sun is up, and then you get to eat at night. Well, it turns out I was recently in Dubai, where they have the tallest building in the world, and I did a quick calculation, and I confirmed it with others there, that in fact they print separate tables for residents at the top of this building because the sun sets later if you are at the top of that building than if you are at the base, because that building, and you have it up there now, that's the actual tweet from the top. This building is 30% taller than what the World Trade Center was. It's crazy tall, and that's a picture I took while I was visiting Dubai. So the sun sets 2 minutes later for you at the top because you're seeing that much farther over the Earth, curvature of the Earth. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they'd have an answer for that.
Well, they can't. They wouldn't.
But here's what they say the sun is. Here's how they explain day and night and whatnot. So you got the flat Earth right there. The sun is over this plate that is the Earth, and it rotates or revolves around a center axis, and that way you get day and night on there. But meanwhile, by the way, I didn't tell you this. The sun is only 4,000 miles away on this plate. 4,000 miles away.
Yeah, that's.
This is, but people believe it.
It's 860,000 miles across.
Now you're just splitting hairs.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah,
you're just splitting.
Okay, so now here's the thing. We live in a free country. I will never want to legislate what people think. Mm-hmm. You can think the craziest thoughts you want.
They do.
You should just never be responsible for creating legislation that affect the rest of society. Legislation should be based on objective truths, not on some belief system you happen to have for yourself that others are in conflict with. So go ahead and think that, but if you try to then influence others, you're actually being irresponsible, and you are destabilizing the foundations of an informed democracy.
Absolutely. How excited are you about space these days? I think we're entering a whole new phase in space exploration, whereas these giant, huge budget projects that the government was behind are kind of being taken over by a lot of smaller, more private entities that are getting a lot done, a lot of new, exciting information. It's a fantastic time.
Yeah, so I think this should have been happening decades ago, first of all. But second, I'm a contrarian on some of these elements. I'm not convinced that the private enterprise will lead a space frontier in the way we typically think of a space frontier, which is how far have you gone, what planets have you visited lately. There's a different kind of frontier that SpaceX is breaching, and that's the cost of access to space. They're trying to bring those costs down, which we we know, that's been the most prohibitive forces against the advances of space in the recent decades. So which is why you needed huge government budgets to do it in the first place. If you can do it on the cheap and effectively and safely, then so much of what we're doing in space could just be offloaded to private enterprise, have them make a buck, they'll do it efficiently and the like. But if you're going to do something that's never been done before, generally there's no business model for that. I cannot see a private enterprise saying, we're going to send a spacecraft to Mars. If I'm a shareholder, I will say, how much it will cost? Well, a lot, and we don't know. It'll be expensive. They're dangerous? Yes, people probably die. What's the return on investment? I don't know, probably nothing initially.
No one's gonna want to take that.
Right. So I'll say, let somebody else do it. This is what governments do that have much longer time horizons than the quarterly or annual reports of private enterprise. And so the government does it first. They find out where the friendlies are and where the hostiles are, where the trade winds are. And once the maps are drawn, then you see that to private enterprise, who can then make a buck off it. This is why I've said this 1,000 times. That's why the first Europeans to the New World was not the Dutch East India Trading Company. It was Columbus, funded by Spain, who had whole other objectives for that mission.
Commercial venture.
It was commercial or hegemonistic, whatever, because she said, here's a satchel of flags, plant them wherever you go. Claim the land in the name of Spain. So there are other motivations for that drove that era of discovery. So then private enterprise comes in. So yes, you need the private enterprise if you're going to turn a space program into a space industry.
Right.
You'll need that.
But the big money government,
if you're going to do something
as a leader, you kind of need that. I see it as, especially the Apollo program and before that, Gemini and Mercury. I see that
as showing off now.
Yes, of course. I see that though as national pride and international competition against obviously the Russians at the time. Now, how important is that in these days? I don't see that type of, we need to do this because we're a nation and we want to show the world how amazing we are.
It's a perceptive question. And at the time, it wasn't so much pride, although that was part of it. We were at war. Simply. We were at war. And when Sputnik was launched, Sputnik wasn't just some spacecraft. It was a hollowed out intercontinental ballistic missile shell where they put a radio transmitter and it flew over our heads outside of our airspace because it was in our space, if you will.
Right.
And if you do that, if you can send a radio transmitter in an intercontinental ballistic missile head, you can send a nuclear warhead. And so this is why we freaked out. And NASA was formed a year later, and thus began the space race. So it wasn't just pride. There was a perception that it was in the interest of national security. So, and this is why we go to the moon. Now we find out Russia's not going to the moon after we arrive there, and we beat them there, and we're done.
Yeah.
That's why we were not on Mars by 1985, as everyone thought we were.
Right.
People thought we'd be on Mars. Moon 1969, Mars by 1980, which would only be 11 years later. Why weren't we on Mars? People who thought we'd be on Mars thought we went to the moon because we're explorers and we're discoverers and we're Americans. No, because we were scared shitless. That's why. And then once we didn't have the reason to be scared because Russia was not gaining space as the high ground, all that money dried up. That's why the last Apollo mission was 17. We didn't even send 18, even though we built the rockets to do so. We said, we're done here. On to the next problem. So don't confuse yourself. Don't delude yourself into thinking we went to the moon because it's in our DNA. That's all delusional cleansing of your memory of the past. So today, we're not at war. Not in that kind of war.
In that sense,
right. And so, no, war will not be the driver. If we go to the Mars, I think my read of history tells me it'll have to be because we are at war with someone else who wants to go to Mars, or, and I joke about this, all China has to do is leak a memo saying they want to put military bases on Mars. Doesn't have to be true. Leak it, right? We'd be on Mars in 10 months. Oh my God. 1 month to design, build, fund the spacecraft, 9 months to get there. We have colonies, cities. Okay. So, or there's got to be some economic motivation. Is there oil on Mars or diamond mines on Mars? Other than that, I've lost confidence that just political will is sufficient to make any of that happen. Now, I've made a different point, a more subtle point, that if you have big, ambitious
big, hairy, audacious goals, big, ambitious missions that involve science and technology and engineering, and you have progress weekly that you can report about in the newspapers, that's a force operating on society. It's like, oh, what did we discover today? What are we going next week? What did the astronaut do then? What they're going to step down on a comet, on an asteroid. They're going to deflect an asteroid that might hit us. Oh my gosh! Headlines. This works its way down into the educational pipeline, and all of a sudden people want to become scientists. They want to become engineers. You don't have to have special programs to get people interested in it, because it is in the culture. It is in the air. It is in, everyone becomes and even if you don't want to be a scientist, you'll do things that are affected by what that frontier is. Let's say you want to be an attorney. What you're going to say, I want to write the new laws that'll affect mining asteroids. Who owns an asteroid when you arrive there?
It opens up a lot.
All of a sudden, the community becomes a participant on the exploratory frontier. We turn a sleepy country into an innovation nation.
We do love
and in that way,
exploration as humans.
We do, but somebody's got to write the check. And so what I'm saying is, if this becomes the new culture, then the secondary effect is that everyone is engaged in some way in the STEM fields, and it is the STEM fields that are the engines of tomorrow's economy. The 21st century economy will grow on the back of innovations in science, technology, engineering, and math. And rather than forcing programs on people to get them interested in science, do something interesting in science. And then the interest follows like day follows night.
I just heard today that they're opening up the moon to private enterprise.
Yeah, so here's the thing. So we've already been to the moon.
Right.
So now private enterprise goes to the moon. We already know what it costs, and you can do better on that.
Right.
We know what it's made of.
Kind of an outline.
We know it's not made of cheese. So there's an outline. So fine. Go for it.
Yeah.
Send private enterprise.
Amazing to me that when you look back at the Apollo program and how just out of reach to anybody but the United States government that was, and how exciting it must be to people like SpaceX and other the fledgling space companies to have that goal and go, wow, can we do this? Can we put something on the moon?
So they're tasked with, can they go to the moon for a fraction of what it costs the country to go to the moon? And no doubt they will succeed at that. It's a matter of when, and can they make a good business model for it? Otherwise, it's a one-off. You can do a one-off to Mars. A private company could do that if you're really wealthy and you don't have to worry about shareholders.
A plaque with your name on it to land there.
Yeah, worry about shareholders, right?
Yeah.
And you can do it.
Oh my God, fantastic, Neil. Thanks. So much.
Okay, it's out. Okay.